Reverse aging and boost collagen with Rhonda Allison Skincare. Peptides help increase collagen and elastin, reducing fine lines, wrinkles, loss of elasticity, and increasing firmness. RA Skincare has created several peptide serums ideal for photoaging due to years of UV exposure, toxic environments, and premature and general aging. Our serums are perfect for restoring and maintaining moisture and hydration levels within the skin. Whether you have sensitive, normal, or severely photoaged skin, RA Skincare has a cutting-edge peptide just for you. Learn more at rhondaallison.com. Do you see yourself as the rebel who challenges the status quo on skin health? Learn how to be a critical thinker, discover innovative solutions to skin conditions, and facilitate individualized healing on a deeper level with Truth Treatment Systems. Truth Treatment Systems provides you the products and tools to unveil the truth behind skin conditions. Sign up for a wholesale account today at truthtreatmentspro.com and receive 10% off your first order. That's truthtreatmentspro.com.
Hello and welcome to ASCP's Esty Talk. I'm your co-host, Maggie Staszcuk, and ASCP's Education Program Manager.
And I'm Ella Cressman, licensed esthetician, certified organic formulator, ingredient junkie, and content contributor for Associated Skincare Professionals. Hey, Maggie.
Hi, Ella.
I'm still at home and I'm coming back soon.
We can't wait to have you in.
I know, I can't wait, but I wanted to let you know I'm still keeping a watchful eye on social media. And for that, I do want to give a shout out to Adriana. She is an eyebrow artist, a permanent makeup artist, esthetician, and she loves our podcast. So, hey, Adriana, it's great that you're listening and we love that you tune in and I can't wait for you to hear this.
Hey, Adriana. So we're going to be talking today about the passing of MoCRA. And on December 29th of this past year, 2022, President Biden signed into law the Modernization of Cosmetics Regulation Act of 2022, or MoCRA. And this reform, it's bringing more regulation to the cosmetic industry, and it is the first FDA update over cosmetic regulation since 1938. That's huge.
Did you hear that though? All these companies like gasping at once. Yeah, that's good. Like a lot of companies. So I think this is an interesting, I'm very excited to talk about this today. It's a interesting revelation and an advancement, and there's a lot of pluses and a few ness. So let's get into it.
Yeah, for sure.
So MoCRA is requiring the following: product and facilities registration, which is key. Very, very important. So what does that mean for some professional products and a lot of other products? Is that very similar in the food industry. They have production must be done in a controlled environment. So they have these clean kitchens, is what they call them in the food industry. So now the same thing will be required for all cosmetics, and what they're labeling as cosmetics is going to be skincare formulations and everything. So this is an advancement. No more, as they call them so lovingly, bathtub balms or farmers market mixes. And with that is the introduction of good manufacturing practices for facilities. So we've talked about this before with a regulatory podcast, but these GMP, as it's referred to, it's like a club that you should be involved with. If you're not, you're kind of poo-pooed, but now it's going to be a requirement to follow these GMP practices. And with that, what comes with that is a bunch of auditing, and it's a very stringent process to pass and then maintain. And then on top of that, we'll have safety testing and serious adverse event documentation. So what happens when you formulate a product? Some products, especially if they have what's considered drugs, like sunscreen, for example, they have to be tested and passed to ensure that it is representing what is included. So that's the case for sunscreen or products that have salicylic acid or other, whatever the FDA has deemed drugs at a certain percentage. And so now this safety testing different from stability testing that's currently required. The safety testing is going to be something instilled for all products, no longer a shouldn't be a problem. Now they have to prove that it won't be a problem. And then the other thing would be labeling changes. So right now there is labeling requirements. You cannot, and any lab that is GMP certified is very strict. And usually the labs is where the products are filled and finished. So they'll get the labels and they will review them just to ensure their GMP is not at risk, their qualifications. And they'll review them and they'll kick off words like heal, like you can't say heal, or you can't use certain other terms. So they'll remove that. But now it's apparently they're going to require if something happens, this is what you must do based on that. And then other additional regulations for products containing talc. Can we get a woohoo? This is awesome because talc by itself, not so bad, but talc because where you mine talc is very close proximally to asbestos. Usually they're grown very close together. And then as we've covered in previous podcasts, the permissions for the amount of asbestos in talc products or talc raw material is alarming at best. So that's going to be a really good thing because they'll be more stringent versus, I think it was comparable. This is just a comparable testing that they were doing before for products containing talc when they're looking for asbestos in. They would take a sample, which would be equivalent to a teaspoon compared to a truck size load of product. They take a teaspoon, and if it didn't have X amount of parts per million of asbestos, then it would pass. So that means they could have just got a good corner or whatever. And then there's also going to be further investigation into the safety of per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS, in cosmetics. So that's going to be really great for and I see this probably going to be anything that is posing alarming reaction. So it's really an advancement towards health of the industry as well.
So a lot of changes coming with this. Let's break down some of this a little further, starting with product and facilities registration. So there's already voluntary product registration procedure in place with the FDA. So this law, in theory, is going to change that quote unquote voluntary to mandatory. So by the end of the year, facilities are going to have to register with the FDA. And there's a lot of manufacturers that are already complying with this. And you mentioned this already, Ella, but a lot of manufacturers that are creating over-the-counter products that have quote unquote drugs like the sunscreens or the acne products, the salicylic that you mentioned, they're registered with the FDA already. But there's those products out there, those manufacturers that the kitchen beauticians, if you will, they're taking that big, deep gasp and they're going to have to comply with this law as well.
And there's some companies, like this is back when I was a few years ago, I was consulting for a lot of different brands in a certain space. And they were wanting to formulate these sunscreens, which were like effective, very, very effective, but they weren't compliant. And I remember just having these young entrepreneurs super excited about developing products. They had this amazing formulation. They had tested it in our active lifestyle that we have here in Colorado. So it'll be interesting. Like you said, that gasp. The FDA has provided guidance on GMP practices since 1997. But now those standards are going to be universally mandated by law. And what we kind of talked about before is you're adopting them or adapting the practices in. It's just very much similar to what Maggie was saying about the facilities registration, but now it's mandated. So there are going to be some facilities who are going to have to step up. Some of our favorites that are going to have to step up and comply. So I'm curious to see what that's going to do to price point for some of the products that are out there.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back.
DMK is the world leader in paramedical skin revision education, with certification programs designed to give licensed professionals a thorough understanding of the skin and an in-depth study of the DMK concept of remove, rebuild, protect, maintain. Created by the botanical visionary Danae Montague King, DMK offers skin revision training and education for all ages, skin conditions, and ethnicities in more than 35 countries, harnessing the body's innate healing mechanisms to change the health of the skin. Learn more at DanaeMKing.com. That's DANNEMKING.com. Elibana, Australian-born, globally loved. Elibana's story is simple. They love lashes and brows. They shoot for the stars and lift lashes to new heights. Their addiction is real, their passion is popping, and there is nothing more they crave than offering excellence, service, and innovation in products. Elibana Lash Lift allows you to offer your customers luscious, lifted lashes that can last up to 12 weeks in one safe 20-minute treatment. Learn more at elibana-usa.com.
Okay, here we go. Let's get back to the podcast.
With regard with safety testing and serious adverse event documentation, this is now required for cosmetic products. It's unclear what those requirements are, but with the passing of this law, the FDA is now going to establish those guidelines. And then also they're going to require mandatory adverse event submission to the FDA. So this is going to be if somebody is having a negative reaction to a specific ingredient. That's going to be things like rashes, burns, their hair starts falling out, maybe they're getting burning in the eyes or whatever that reaction is. That all has to be submitted to the FDA, where in the past it was not a requirement.
No, what was required was just the manufacturers would take that on and they would do their own investigative things, but send MSDS sheets or whatever. And usually it'd fall on the insurance companies, right?
Yeah.
Usually it would fall on as a formulator, you would have to, or as a product manufacturer, you have to have manufacturer's insurance. Even as a private label, oftentimes, like if you're going to do some private label, you're required to have manufacturer's insurance for these things because that's where the liability fell. But now it sounds like it's going to be more of a legal issue than just a monetary issue.
And I wonder too how, I know that labeling is part of this passing of the law as well. But with regard to adverse events happening and safety testing, I imagine labeling is hugely going to change also.
Again, and packaging, we know that's coming. Like there's with the California laws requiring certain sustainable packaging requirements. Like this is going to change a lot about our industry. Labeling requirements, where we give the MSDS sheets. And I'm curious and I'm interested in your perspective on this. What has tipped this over? Because as consumers, we have been asking for safe beauty for decades. But now, I have my suspicions on what could be having tipped us over. I mean, we know that documentary, the 4-part documentary that we've seen, and maybe it's more documentary type things that have happened. But I'm curious why now it's happening. When we look back, let's take, for example, the Johnson & Johnson cases against the talc for the baby powder, right? And so that was kind of poo-pooed in this good old boy society where they're still cranking out talc baby powder. It was not banned, but it is regulated, right? Kind of. But now it's going to be even more regulated. And as we talked about previously, the testing methods are going to be more stringent and hopefully have a closer eye on those things. But I'm wondering, how do we get here? And hopefully this is progressive instead of going to have any kind of ill effect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I think without getting too political, it's just the world that we're living in right now. We've done a lot of podcasts on clean beauty and sustainable beauty. And I think that's just what the consumer is demanding right now. And this is part of that. As estheticians, we are the consumer also. And we're making demand for products from the manufacturer that are meeting certain guidelines also.
I have to think about that one part of the documentary where they were talking about it being a safe place to work. And they were specifying the nail industry at that point. When we look at aesthetics or hair, I was doing some research. The past few weeks, I've been doing a lot of research on hair products. hair care professionals and different things. And the scalp it absorbs 10 times more than the other areas of the skin. And just thinking about hairstylists with their hands and all those chemicals, same as us, just, we wear gloves too. But anyways, just thinking about everything we're around, right? And I think that you spot on the consumer and the professionals. And then we're speaking up and saying, hey, can you help us? Can you help us have a safe place to work? And can you help us ensure we have safe products to use on ourselves? And I think you're right. I agree with you. It's the world that we live in now that feels really good. This part feels great.
Regulations surrounding PFAs, just like with talc, they're not yet banned, but heavily regulated. And the FDA is required to assess the use, safety, and risk associated with them in cosmetics. And they will be publicly publishing its findings by December 29th of 2025. So I think that's interesting with the passing of this law. There's also standards being put on the FDA as well. So it's not just that this law is passed and now the FDA is regulating cosmetics. The FDA also is being held accountable to some degree.
I think that's important because this is another subject I was looking at for, I think we should talk about it too. But there was alarm set off about, and PFAs are scary, in my opinion, but there's other there's other ingredients that sound scary, and there's alarm bells that go off with some of them too. And I think they get a bad rap for being misunderstood, some of them. Polyoxyethanol, for example, that sounds super scary. Like I know I see the word ethanol when I get gas, or, ooh, that's poly sounds really scary, but it's not. It's naturally derived, and it's a great alternative for a preservative, especially compared to parabens. So it can be scary in any large amount, but so can anything. So this, for me, having the accountability, because you're looking at reports, whether it's the cosmetic review board here in the States or the FDA in the States, or even what we do often is we look at other countries, we'll look at Australia, we'll look at the EU, what is permissible in those areas, because somehow there's this thought process that their standards are higher and that they care more about their citizens. So I think having the FDA be more accountable and transparent will help with with consumer confidence.
Yeah, I'm curious, Ella, what your thoughts are on if there are any downsides to the passing of MoCRA. And in my mind, what I'm thinking of are those estheticians out there or those, chemists out there that are creating product, in their kitchen or in their garage, or even those private label individuals.
I think there's a couple of downsides. Any time that you have regulation, then it changes things, as long as it's still an open market for the small businesses to thrive or have an opportunity, so that you're not pushing out those types of people and just leaving room for the big boys, if you will. I think that is going to be very important. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking you want to start a line, I think the private labels are fine, because private label labs are usually GMP compliant and registered anyways, like they follow that. I think some of these newer brands that want to start out, these aspiring estheticians who want to formulate their own product line, don't let this scare you. Just follow. They have these kitchens you can rent. So if you want to make cupcakes and sell them, and they will have kitchens that you can rent, clean rooms that you can rent for product development. Just make sure you're doing everything that you can. I get asked a lot, where did I go to school to become a formulator? Send me an email. I'll let you know where, but there's a lot of this that they go through as well, like the business part of it. So I would encourage you to stay excited and still go for it if that's what you don't like. Don't get scared, because at the end of the day, it's just passing a test and just staying safe, and you're fine. But for some people, they're going to have to catch up.
Now, listeners, we want to hear from you. Do you foresee potential problems with the passing of MoCRA, or is this a good thing for the industry? Share your thoughts with us on social media by commenting on our Instagram or Facebook posts, or by emailing getconnected@ascpskincare.com.